And we're back. Welcome to the Weekly Roundup, the place where we unpack what's been going on in the yoga, wellness, etc. world and what we've been coaching our clients through. Right now, I'm just here with my fellow coach Carol. I'm Bridget, and we are going to be joined by Josh and Terry very shortly. We've got some stuff going on, but Carol's going to kick it off. And just before we hopped on, we were discussing the whole does free, does cheap, does it devalue, does it attract the wrong customer? And sort of like I have been seeing this conversation happening for as long as I've been in this industry. Is just like, we have to stop doing stuff for free. It is devaluing yoga. It is, all this stuff. And I respect that point of view, but I think that we might have a couple things amongst us on this team that might just complicate that idea a little bit. I think, Carol, correct me if I'm wrong. Do you think it might be just a little bit more complicated than all that?
For sure, definitely. There's always nuance to things like this, right? I
Totally.
think what's come up in coaching this week with a couple clients for me is like they feel like we've done these things, they quote unquote don't work, and I'm not doing that anymore because it is attracting the wrong type of client. And I think that there are pros and cons. We've definitely seen where like free week sometimes like there is a thing where unless that holds value to the person, like yeah, maybe you could give out 100 free week passes. And if people don't care, maybe if you get 10 people in on the free week, that might be all. But I think it's inappropriate to just discount that any sort of discount, any sort of free is invaluable, like here, or that it's like cheapening your product. And so I know I fell into that. I was like, they're already getting it for such a great deal, da 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 da. But what I think is happening, hey Terry, is that we like to use that as an excuse because our sales process isn't in place or we don't have the tools that we need for retention. And so we just automatically assume, well, they're just coming for something free and just being looky-loos and then leaving. But the real problem is there's a deeper layer to it. So I'll stop there and see if anyone has something else to say. Oh,
Yeah,
they're
I
coming up. Here
love to
comes Josh.
explain
Oh my gosh, with a new haircut
Dude, without a hat and
no
new
hat.
and
hair.
no hat.
Whoa.
We're completely derailed now.
Yeah.
It's
Curveball.
I haven't seen your hair this short in like a really long time.
Hasn't been this short in a really long time. It's hot this year.
Yeah, it's hot hair too.
And I got a free haircut. So no, I didn't, but I
was
totally
was it a free one?
it was so cheap, it was basically free. I'll pipe in on this. I think the premise of this highlights a really important conversation way beyond this devaluing thing or what like any of that. There's some details in here we could talk through, but the premise is that you think the value of your product is associated with the price that you charge only. And that's just not how that works. That like there's a million ways that we see this. It's exactly the same thing as saying if I offer a sale, like I want to get more people in the doors or I want to make more money, so I should have a sale and discount my 10 class pack or whatever else. Or it's summertime and it's slow, so I better do a deal to get people to buy stuff. It's the same underlying core thought, which is that if you lower price, that increases the volume of purchasing, and that's not necessarily directly true. And it's not untrue, it does happen, but it's the test that we do when we do sales trainings with teams too. We say, cool, we're going to give everyone a handful of free class cards, 10 each, go out on the street and you can give them to anybody, but you have to get them to commit to signing up for a class to be able to get it to them. how easy do you think it's going to be to give away the 10 free classes? To which everyone responds, not that easy. It's going to be hard. Because if I don't want the free class, it doesn't matter. There's nothing you can do to make me do it. So the whole idea that price is the only lever to pull to create a purchase behavior is not true. And at the same time, the idea that because the price is such a good deal and so cheap that that alone will be why I would come into you. So I don't know. This is a long-winded way of just saying, like, the one detail, Carol, that you were saying of is the devaluing the product conversation. There's some truth there, but it's the idea of attracting the wrong client, which is the most ironic thing to fucking say ever if we look at the yoga industry, when I bet you the same studio's website has yoga for everybody. Like, we're for everyone and anyone can come, and yoga's for everybody, and that we don't have a specific avatar. Everyone welcome, everyone come in. We want to be accessible. Let's do a community class and a donation class and blah, 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 blah. But I couldn't possibly market my business and give away a free class because I would attract the wrong client. Fuck off. That doesn't even make sense. Rhetorically, I mean, not anyone individually. It's a weird, I don't know. What's the word? Oxymoronic?
Yeah.
Is that a real word? Yeah.
Yeah, that is a real word. Yeah, it's the same. It's a similar conversation that I've had with my own staff a lot. I'm having a lot with clients right now about the free guest pass. And like it's always like, oh, well, they're just coming in because their friend is bringing them in, and so no reason to like give them a, whatever. Or they're always wishy-washy about it, whatever. And what we coach people to say, and what I always say is just like, well, they wouldn't come in like if their friend was like, let's go, jump off a bridge into rocky waters together. Like they are interested in yoga. It sounds fun to them, and that's why they're there. It's not because like someone dragged them there, except in the cases sometimes of husbands. It does. Sometimes husbands do come in just being like, I don't even know why I'm here. But usually they like the class anyway, so you should still upgrade them. But yeah, it's just if someone shows interest in your business, assume they are interested in your business, you silly goose. Terry?
Yeah, I love this one, and I absolutely can speak to it. We actually, our newest coach, um, Shannon, who wasn't able to be here today, we've worked together and put together a strategy specifically around the guest passes. And at first, it took a while to get the team to upgrade. They had to upgrade because they were giving guest passes and nothing was happening. So we really dialed the process in, really worked to train the team. And last year, because of guest passes, they had over, and they're in a secondary market. They're not in a major, but they had over like 120 visits a month. And a lot of them were guest passes. And they converted quite a few of them to the extent that added 130. I did the math. I did a deep dive. It was $130,000 additional revenue to the bottom line last year from guest passes. It was like their primary lead gen is really what it was. And in fact, at one point, we started off with their intro offer, got 5 guest passes. And it's like, why not? When you're in that honeymoon phase and somebody's you're really excited about something, you kind of want to share it with everybody. About, I don't know, 2/3 through the year, we had to reduce the number of buddy passes for the intros because their classes were getting so full with wait lists. And so that can be, and yeah, it's a free class. However, you got to have the process. Carol, what you said early on is if there's no process to it, then yeah, it's just a free class, but you got to have a process behind it. Josh.
I think one of the things, Terry, that you're highlighting that you brought up in the beginning, Carol, too, is like, this statement is an expression of frustration on the owner's side in a business where they feel like I'm being taken advantage of. People are coming in and they're getting a good deal. They're doing this free class, whatever else, but then they're not bringing 6 more people and buying a membership and staying here for 3 years and paying me a bunch of money. Because like logically, if we said, okay, run a free class thing, give everyone 150 buddy passes, and every client you have brings in 150 brand new people and they buy anything at all, no one is going to open their mouth about this being a problem ever. So it's a little bit of a like focusing on the wrong piece in my mind, where what you're not calculating is how many hours and how much money and how much effort are you putting into content creation and social media and ads and all these other acquisition channels to try to generate leads and get people coming into your business. Or you give out a buddy pass and Terry just brings somebody in. And so you miss half of them, but you got half. Like it's the glass half full, half empty piece of the puzzle. Like you're focusing on the wrong thing. And to go back to Carol, what you said, that frustration, I think the tough love, hard truth piece is that the frustration isn't that people are taking advantage of you. It's that you have a situation, people, systems, etc. in your business that allow that outcome to be true where you don't feel like it's viable. Because if you had a sales team that you're like, when people come in, the people who are legitimately interested, like we convert them. And I have like 95% confidence level that that happens. If they're legitimately not interested, they leave and like, oh, well, and we don't let it bother us. But if you felt like that, then this just isn't a concern.
It's a numbers game. It is a pure
Yeah.
numbers game. And it's in sales, it's like you got to have people coming in. So how you get those people in, whether you do a paid ad and you give them a free class or you give a free class away with no ad, the result is the same. You have someone in your business to use your service. And if you don't have a process to try to convert them to something paid in your business, service business, then shame on you. That's a you problem.
I
That's not
think,
an offer.
yeah,
That's a you problem. You don't have the system in place, as Carol said, to you could give a free yoga all day. And if you don't have a process in place, it's like, you know, pack up your
yeah,
tent and go home kind of thing.
yeah. I think this is not to say you should do free stuff either, to be
No,
clear.
100%.
I think there's a lot of value in being the type of business that you're like, we just don't do anything for free. There's nothing wrong with that either. It's just owning the truth behind it when we make these generic narrative level statements in all these industries around things. Oh, it devalues my Pilates studio. If we give it away for free, no one would ever pay for it or whatever else. Like, there's not like that's completely untrue, but under the surface, there's more that's being said. The only other thing I'd add to this equation, Bridget, before spinning to you is there is just the supply and demand equation piece of it too. And I feel like most of the time in class-based boutique fitness, especially the yoga world's the best example of this because we would call the yoga world being like this gray zone. You're not actually high volume and you're not boutique small volume. You're like in between. But a lot of larger Pilates places, mat Pilates, hit gym stuff would have this scenario too, where simple math, let's say you run 5 classes a day, you've got like 30 in a week. Are your classes full with a wait list? Yes or no? And if the answer is no, because they're not, and not even full, 80% full most of the time, 80% of the time, that's a perfect schedule, 80-80. If you're like less than half full most of the time, you have inventory, you have space. Supply and demand would tell you that that means your price should go down. Now, I'm not saying to lower your price, but it's like, what does it hurt for you to fill spots by giving some free classes away with buddy passes or whatever else? You've got the space for it. Do whatever you want. Solve one thing first.
Yeah, I was just going to mention, I was really in this mindset for a while with our open house members that we get every year because they get their first month like really, really cheap. That's the offer we do. We actually usually do a traditional intro offer for new clients, but at our open house, the big deal is like we'll give you your first month of membership for like $25 or whatever it is. And I really was in this mindset for years of like, well, we don't retain, we get a big drop off in February because it's a really cheap offer. And so, and to an extent, that's true. Like to an extent, there is going to be there's going to be, X amount of people who just get it and know they're going to cancel after the free month, just like you would with an intro offer. But this year we were like, okay, and we did have a good retention rate anyway, and we were happy with our results. But this year we went into it and we were like, okay, but could we do better? Like, is it actually true that every single person who cancels is canceling because they were in it for the cheap deal or whatever? And like, how can we challenge that? So we did a bunch of stuff and we had a way better retention rate from January to February. Imagine that. And it was just really fun to see. It was so great to see the teachers involved and just so fun to see your strategies just like pay off big time. So, yeah.
I think that's the key is like you try something and then it didn't work the way you wanted it to. So you added something else, you tried something new. And so it's not that it didn't work, it's just there was extra layers there that your team added on and now great success, right? Bye, mom. But also, I mean, I'm thinking in terms of, I remember one year we went to this health expo, here in the area, and that was a complete bummer. Like we gave out all these free things, whatever. But then we were like, that was the wrong audience. If we were doing something like outdoor yoga free in the park, though it is the audience that makes a difference. And so there were different strategy. It wasn't the group that we were looking for, but there are other places that something like that would actually work in, right? So I guess that's what I'm just saying. Like the free or next to free or some kind of discount isn't necessarily wrong. Maybe you just need to try a little something extra or something, tweak it just a little bit and measure. That's what we always talk about, right? Measure and educate yourself.
I really feel like so much of this conversation has to do with the misfocus on the detail altogether. It's like looking at the wrong piece of the puzzle and fixating on it. Because the flip side of this is raising prices, where you're like, you've got someone who's on a membership with you, and I'm not saying to raise prices if this is the case, let me just preface this, but like you have someone on membership at your Pilates studio, they're paying you $89 a month, and they have for 7 years, and you're like, oh, but if I raise it $10, they might cancel. Yeah, maybe, but like your going rates on like 150. They're paying half price. And so there's a few ways to approach that. Like they've been with you for a long time. You've already made lots of lifetime value off of them. Why do you need to raise their price? True, 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 true. All of that's true. But also, what's wrong with someone paying the appropriate price for the service that you're offering? You're not the same place. You're better now, whatever. So there's this weird like pressure on both sides, I think, but they both come from this fixation on price being the detail that matters. And Carol, to your point of like right or wrong audience, the difference being, I think, is the context. And I think that's the piece that people miss. If you are outbound in your messaging, I'm putting a message out. I'm at the expo thing you're talking about, and you didn't come there to look at doing yoga classes with me, you might luck out and there'll be some people who are interested, or I might be like, you know what? I would be curious about that. I will take this free class card or whatever else. And you'll get somebody. But if the majority of people, it's like, that's not why they're there. That's not the purpose of the event. Even if it logically lines up, it's like you're in front of a bunch of people that weren't looking for this thing. That's different than an ad or a buddy pass or an open house where you're saying, hey, you can do this for free, but you have to claim it. And I purposefully took the action to click the button and download the thing and get the code for the free class. Or my friend Carol's like, come do this class with me. And I say, okay. Like I had to opt in. The context has changed at that point. So I don't know. I feel like that's the nuance of like the right, wrong person is the wrong focus. The price is the wrong focus. It's the context of, this goes all the way back to Terry, what you're talking about sales too. I think, Bridget, you mentioned this. Like, why not assume if anyone says yes to an offer and is actively doing anything towards you, giving you attention, messaging you, and especially showing up in your business, just assume that they're in. Assume yes. Behave from that place. I think it's only like this weird personal comfort thing that gets thrown in there where we're like, well, I'm going to assume no. And like, they'll choose to if they want to, sort of thing. Nah, not really. Like, that's not exactly how that works. They did choose to. That's why they're standing in front of you right now. They already did that part. Now it's your job.
Josh and Carol, you might remember this too. We had a real world example of this a couple of years ago when we were at one of our clients on site at Orange Lotus Yoga in Exton, Pennsylvania. And we were working with the team to get them more comfortable. There was a little bit of, oh, we don't want to do the buddy passes. We don't want to do the thing. They're here on a free class. And so we were working through some of that resistance on part of the team. So, and they were doing it, they were getting better, and they pitched it. It was I'll never forget, there was a mother and her daughter came in on a buddy pass. And they came up and they were just like really, the mother was like arms full, when they presented the offer. Do you remember this? I don't know if you were at the front desk. Okay. So anyway, the front desk person valiantly presented, hey, what most people do is did the thing, and you could just see the mother was like this and the daughter was like, and they're like, no, no, we just want to take this, we just got this class. I'm like, no, I'm like, okay. Went in, came back out and said, can we still get that offer you mentioned before class? Right. So here was a situation where before it was like this assumption is, oh, they're not going to want to do this. The person was uncomfortable saying it in the beginning, but that just validated everything that we were saying is you just have to get over that discomfort. You have to present it. And if you have like, what Josh always says is have part of sales is having no attachment to the outcome. And in this case, they did it, they tried, and it worked. So I don't know where I was going with that, but just as a real world example of why it is important not to assume that the person in front of you does not want the thing. Bridget.
This is reminding me also of another thing I was thinking about when I was thinking about like, okay, what is this audience that's like wanting free stuff? There is stuff about the free stuff people that I think you can assume. Like they are maybe people, maybe you could think of them less as cheap people and maybe people who don't like a lot of resistance, people who don't like to maybe like go get their credit card out or whatever when they're sitting, when they're doing whatever. And this reminds me of something that I have been talking so much to my own team about and my clients is when you don't make the offer, when you don't make it easy for someone to do the next thing, that isn't a kindness. That's actually putting more work in their lap. Even just the phrase, just let me know if you want something. You are now placing more responsibility on them and like more work on them. And if this person is a free person, you already know maybe you can just assume they don't like to work that hard, and that's fine. And so assume that they want you to take all the resistance out. And one of the things that creates resistance, I think, is making someone leave your desk, go do shit, and then have to come back up to your desk to let you know, oh, hey, you know what? I did think about what you said, and yes, I would like to do this. To that person who doesn't want to go across the room to get their credit card out, that's a person you say, hey, can I get this set up for you right now instead? And yeah, that's all I got. Josh.
I'm the laziest. It's not cheap. I'm the laziest person with this stuff. If I was coming in and you don't pitch me and then afterwards I really like the class and I'm like, yeah, I would probably sign up for this. But after the class is over and I'm all sweaty and there's whatever else and I'm feeling fried and I feel good or whatever, the fucking last thing I want to do is go and find my stuff and stand there all disgusting in front of you looking like a jackass as other people are signing in for the next class and then tell you to sell me the thing. It could be the greatest class I've ever fucking taken in my life and I will leave instead of do that. I might go sign up online if it's the greatest class I've ever done or whatever. But like I'm not going to do that effort for you. Speaking just for me personally. The assumption that that's how it works is actually baffling to me. It's because it's incongruent with what most people would admit for themselves. Again, I think it comes to their like personal comfort piece for all this. The other piece here about this wrong focus that I kind of didn't get to before that you just triggered for me, Bridget, is like in Artha, we're talking about freedom. That's what you're searching for as the owner. There's the growing the business part. But like pricing strategy and marketing, like that's the growing the business part. The third component that exists that everyone's doing any of these service-based businesses for is impact with integrity. That's the part that's getting missed in this focus here. And the challenge thought that's interesting that ties to sales all the time, and this whole free conversation triggers too, is like, I want to make a difference in the world by offering something that I really believe can improve people's lives. Because I think that this like could actually fucking save somebody's life because it did mine. Like that's the level of buy-in we're talking about with this. But I'm not willing to be uncomfortable and ask you to join the membership. That doesn't make sense. That's incongruent. Part two of it is like, if I really think that you're just only going to come in because it's free, and as soon as the free part or the cheap part's done, you're going to quit, how much do I really believe in my product? I think that this product can literally change your life and save your life, but not if you get it for free. That would devalue it enough that you'll think, nah, it's not that great. It doesn't fucking make any sense. So, no shade. It's more just like the bigger perspective, I think, especially in the owner levels, you've got to kind of take stock of this stuff. Where I get fired up about it is just that these are the kinds of narratives that get repeated, and it's like they sound nice. They feel like, oh, this is very appropriate. It's very human based. It like there's a lot of virtue signaling gets attached to this stuff. I'm going to devalue it, whatever. It's very righteous. And so everyone hears it and then repeats it, and then it goes again and again and again. And then as a coach, we have all had the experience and gone through it ourselves. We're like, one day you pick your head up and look at it critically for yourself and go like, wait a minute, where does this idea even come from? Is this even true? What are we trying to accomplish? Like as soon as you start applying critical thinking, half the stuff falls apart immediately. And I harp on it just because as the owner, if you say this stuff in front of your team one time, and I really mean it, one fucking time, you will fight this for the next 10 years. It's hard because they're looking to you, whether they say it or not. They're looking to you. You have to sell them the Kool-Aid to drink, you know? If you really want to get your team going strong.
Yeah, and something you said, Bridget, made me think of recently saw a thing. The difference between nice and kind. Right. And that's kind of what you were talking about is it's
Yeah.
nice that I make the offer, but it's kind if it's I'm actually being kind if I say, hey, let me get you set up on that. Right. And that also extrapolates to staff. You can be nice to staff. But a kindness could be if there's someone on your team that isn't cutting it, you could be nice to them, but it's kinder if you let them go.
I like that juxtaposition. It's true. I would agree.
Right.
Kindness has a element of respect associated with it.
Yeah,
You can be really nice and not very respectful. In fact,
exactly.
that's the kind of person in
That's the
business.
passive aggressive. That's the
Yeah.
classic passive aggressive thing, as opposed to if you're really kind, you know, kindness would be, Carol, you've got something stuck in your teeth, right? Something like that. I mean, as opposed to noticing and maybe, oh, it's a kindness. If you tell something, if something, I don't know.
Well,
Like I would have liked it if someone had told me in sixth grade when I went up to give my speech for president of the class that my skirt was tucked in my underpants and people could
no,
see it. And
Terry,
when I turned
no.
around, the whole fucking school saw my underwear.
I
And
have
someone on this,
secondhand trauma from that. I am now permanently traumatized. It's like I was in sixth grade and it happened to me. This is This is a nightmare, Terry. I'm so sorry that that
I
happened to
know.
you.
And I
They
even
thought it
remember
was
when I
your
was,
presidential strategy.
Oh,
They're
yeah,
like,
true. True. You could have played if you had a lot of confidence, you could have played if you were not in sixth
well, I
grade, you
didn't
could
know
have
what
played
it
that.
was, why everybody was twittering behind me. And I still to this day, we are talking, this is like 1972 or three before any of you guys were born.
The worst thing
I
that's
was
ever happened to
wearing
anyone.
this like denim pink skirt, wraparound skirt that my mom had made for me. I was wearing my white saddle shoes with my white knee socks, and I had a little flowered pink paisley kind of blouse because this was the 70s with a little nice little pointed collar. Remember, it's the think shades of Partridge Family. That's how traumatized it was. I still remember what I was wearing.
Oh,
oh my
Terry,
gosh.
it's the
I know.
worst story I've ever
So if
heard.
you're ever wondering if Terry knows how to handle embarrassing situations as a coach
Yeah,
working with you,
yeah,
it
100.
doesn't get worse than that. I mean,
It
No,
does,
it
yeah.
really does.
that
It
is
really does.
the cream of the crop right there.
That was
Oh,
it. Kind of did set me up for us. Like I don't have a problem getting up on on a stage and making a fool out of myself because I did it when I was
Like, not
12,
be worse than
and
that. Can't be worse than
I
that.
and
yeah,
I
it
lived to
cannot be
tell it.
worse than that. Yeah. Oh God. I mean, this is even pointless to say at this point, but after that story, but I was just thinking that niceness is about you and your comfort, and kindness is about the other
Yes.
person, which is truly what this whole every sales conversation I feel like I have with clients leads back to that, which is like
Hmm.
the only reason your staff they're saying all these excuses like it's about them, it's about the other person, it's about like, whatever. It's not. It's about your own discomfort. And I speak from experience that is it's
Yeah.
about my own discomfort when I don't want to say that. I don't want to feel rejected. Um, I don't want to feel like I'm being weird or awkward. And kindness is about the other person. True kindness.
Oh, I actually think this is a good segue into the thing I popped in the chat before about nice versus kind. I'm going to pull this in. Okay, so what you said about it's your discomfort. It's your discomfort in like selling the intro or something like that. So segue into a thing that has come up this week with a client is, and this is from like the lead teachers, pushback, because this is a studio where their overall first visit retention is not very good. It's hovering around 30%. The industry average is 50. So they're 20% below the industry average for class-based businesses. And we're looking at how to get retention, the teachers, right, involved in this process. And it's been an uphill battle. And absolutely this week, the two lead teachers said they do not feel it is their responsibility. Retention should not be put on the teacher. And I think it's because, and the owner thing, and we were just like minds blown. It's like, well, what is your job if it's not to get people to come back and take your class? Right. And they did legitimately say, well, it's not 100%. Yes, it's not 100% the teacher, but I would say it's probably at least 80% the teacher. Because if you think about how often someone interacts with the front desk, it might be just a couple of minutes before, a couple of minutes after class. But if it's an hour class, then that means that person is with the teacher for an hour. So I would say the large proportion of the responsibility is the teacher. Is I just was just blown away. And I think it's because we think it's just very triggering for them and that they're just uncomfortable talking to people about coming back. I don't know. That's what it's incredulous. And we're trying to figure out how to deal with that one. We're navigating through that. Of course, you know what I would say.
We got there.
We got
Fire.
there.
We got there.
We
We
got
got
there.
there.
But anyway, so I mean,
Maybe.
what maybe, but what's it just that's what's happening. And I'm just like, we've gotten teacher pushback before, but never ever have I had, and Josh, made you've been doing this longer than I have. Has anybody actually, well, it's not my responsibility to get people to come back. What?
Yeah, we've kind of had it's not this that's not my job. Selling is not my job. Asking someone over is not my job. I've heard that. The
But getting them
retention
to come
responsibility
back,
thing. Yeah, usually people aren't arguing with that. Sometimes it's the semantics of it. Like people just, counter will is strong in general in humans. And so some individuals, especially if you're asking them to essentially take ownership over something about themselves that they don't want to, they're not ready to, and that's sort of a little bit your job as a boss, then you can get a lot of tension. Sometimes a reframe, like to me, what I'm hearing between the lines of these sorts of conversations often is someone feeling like all of the weight is being put on them and they don't feel like that's fair, which is not what's being said. The reframe might be like, okay, well, if you teach a class, what like non-subjective metric would we look at that would demonstrate success as a teacher of this class in this public facility in this environment? How would you know? And if you go through that questioning process enough, I think most teachers ultimately would get to and or agree that they're like, well, people would show up enthusiastically and they would come back. They would tell me that they're improving in some way. They would bring somebody else in. They would tell someone else about it. They'd evangelize it. Like those are the natural outcomes. They're very obvious. And so in most of the service-based industry, like I find this is actually more extreme in some of the professions where you would assume that it's because it's even more obvious. Like if you're a physical therapist is a good example, we're like, well, I don't know, the person didn't rebook. We have someone that it's like they have a physical therapist in their practice. Same thing, Terry, is the scenario you're talking about. We're like, well, you've been sent 50 clients in the last 6 months, and you only have 2 regular clients, and your rebook rate after session 1, 2 is like 10%. But everyone says you're nice, and you said that the session was good, and no one like complained. But if we're just looking at the hard metrics, this says something's missing, especially compared to the owner of the business whose rebook rate is like 95% and they're 100% full all the time. Like they have too many clients. Objectively, something's amiss there. The bridge, though, I think between, so whatever, this is a long-winded way of just saying like what your responsibility is. I guess the reframe could just be you're going to have to look at what you're doing and then say, how would I know if I'm successful at this? I felt good teaching a class, like, cool, but that's not a success metric. Like, how would you measure this, right? On the owner side, the responsibility part where it ties into this is it's my job to make you good at your job, like to provide what's necessary for that to be true. So either I'm hiring an A player who is already excellent and I'm putting all the support mechanisms around them, or I'm hiring someone who's going to be an A player and I'm training them to that and putting support mechanisms around them to get them there. To just be like, I don't know, you teach a yoga class because you did a 200-hour teacher training a year and a half ago in some other city with some person I've never heard of, teach a vinyasa class and try to make it good. By the way, it's at 6 a.m. Good luck. Oh, your class isn't performing, you're fired. Like, that's bullshit. I'm not saying that's what you're suggesting or what people do, but it goes the other way too. So there is a shared responsibility there. Go ahead, Bridget.
Yeah, I was thinking along similar lines that it might like, and my reaction, Terry, was the same as yours right away. It's like, okay, well then like what is your job? Like what do you what are you doing? Like why wouldn't someone come back to your class? And, you know, when we step back, which I know you also will do, Terry, with your clients here, like why would someone have such a reaction like that, And part of it could just be like they're a diva and whatever. But also, if I started any job, if I had started this job here, coaching for Artha, and Josh had been like, great, your job is to make sure that everybody makes tons of money and has a bunch of freedom in their business and, whatever, and go forth and do that. And if you don't, then you're fired. Like that wouldn't be a great setting me up for success, that's just not how any job works, really. It's not how any job should work. So if I came into a job as a new yoga teacher or even an experienced yoga teacher And someone said to me, like, great, go out there. You have to keep this metric up. It's your responsibility. That isn't as, that is scarier than someone being like, hey, in this ecosystem of our studio, our community, it's any teacher's job is to get them to come back. And here is how you're going to do that. Like, here's all these things. We've worked really hard over the last couple of years with our teachers for this exact thing to increase our first visit retention rate. And all I can do is lay out exactly, like, give them the tools. We improve their classes with lots of mentorship. We have strict guidelines about what their classes should look like. They have to recommend another class at the end of each of their classes. That is a rule we have. And if it's someone's first time, they have to message them after class. And like, so it's not just get them to come back. It's get them to come back. Here's how you're going to do it with all these steps. So those are my thoughts.
I would, this sort of ties to when we talk about contracts and operations, whatever, all the time. The way that we coach to it is we talk about having seats in the business. And in a service-based business where it's human to human, the most difficult part, it seems to be, at first, is the disconnection from the human part for a second. It's like, rather than looking at, here's this teacher, Terry, and talking about Terry, delete Terry for a second and talk about, there is a teacher inside my business. That's a seat, the teacher seat. What are they supposed to do? What would it look like if they were successful? How would I like them to progress? Blah, blah, blah. It's getting that definition of the seat down and then obviously communicating it, to your point, Bridget. I think which you can do at any point in time. If you didn't start it like that, like, do it tomorrow. But for every seat, for every role in your business, the person has to, like, you have to have clear, and they have to know, what are they actually responsible for? What does success look like? And what are the, like, consequences is the word I'm going to use here for non-success. If you know those three things, your team will start performing better instantly, and you'll have a lot more clarity to flag where there's actually a problem that you need to fix or not. Consequence doesn't have to be do this or you're fired. But a good example would be if you run a HIIT gym and you're running classes and a teacher's like, I want to change the class style to this and I want to run it at this time. And you're like, okay, because you don't have any strategy for how you're building your classes out. And then that class is like 10% full and technically loses you money every single time. But then you're like, I don't know, it's not very comfortable to go back to teacher Terry running this HIIT class and be like, I think we got to think about canceling this class or whatever else. Just clear as day up front. The consequences, if we design a class and it doesn't get retention and performance and it's under this threshold and it's whatever this time, then it's on the fucking chopping block. No hard feelings. Even if it's my class, that's exactly what happens, period, because we have that rule in place. When I say consequences, I mean something more like that. It's more generalized than it is personal. I'm really curious in that case, Cherry, what they would say. Like, I'd actually ask, like, well, what are you supposed to do?
It's actually, with the client, the owner and I have decided, and she's invited and they've accepted that they're going to join us on a coaching call. And I'm going to just be very curious, right? You know, kind of like what you said. And I like what you just said there, Josh. And the other thing is they don't believe the metrics. They're like, well, where are you getting this data? Right. There's a lot of like pushback.
That changes. I mean,
it's going to be very
share it with them.
Yeah. I mean, and I told him, I said, well, the data comes from the industry data. It's, you know, several, I said, love them or hate them. One thing that MindBody has provided since the early aughts is a ton of industry data that has now been augmented by lots of other software companies, as well as lots of other resources. So there's tons of data out there of what the benchmarks that we coach towards. It's not just random bullshit
They
we
were
made up.
challenging the benchmarks or the data on
Yes,
their own classes?
they're challenging the benchmarks.
Yeah.
They're
It's
challenging where the benchmarks come from. Um,
That's a more fair question. I think it's important to challenge benchmarks, actually. That's a more fair that's a more fair question than like, where's this data from my classes coming from? You're like, well, people check in and go to your class. It comes from right
yeah,
here. Like I would just show
yeah.
them that.
Well, and there's
Benchmarks are
that,
a good
yeah.
challenge question.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
and but they still, even though I provided all that, they're still skeptical. There's just
Yeah.
some interesting dynamics going on in this particular studio, and sometimes I feel it really is just burning down the house. It just
Is this a newer coaching client? No, it's not. I was
it's
just, yeah,
no,
interesting.
no, it's not.
Mm.
And
Carol?
Oh, well, before Terry even started talking, like what's my mind is going to is like, how do they even feel that they can push back on this? Like, I am your boss. I am telling you this is what's happening. Is there a lack of trust there? Are we too
Yeah.
friendly? Like,
Yeah.
are you, like what is happening that it's like that there are definitely reasons for staff to push back on things. We've talked about like and getting input from them, but also like what I don't know. This is where I always get a little tripped up because I just don't think I ever experienced this. Maybe I'm just a complete hard ass and people were
well,
like nervous to
People are too
deal with me,
terrified of you.
yeah, well, because you're so mysterious,
Like,
Carol.
that's not happening in my
I
business.
I think this is where a lot of this is coming from is the owner bought an established existing business.
Mm,
And
yeah.
so we've talked about the advantages and disadvantages of starting from scratch versus buying a business. And Carol, you and your partner started a business from scratch. So you are the ones that through the years, as opposed to, and I ran into this when you buy an existing business, there's already a culture there, there's already this. And the owner has last summer worked, she's coming up on 2 years of owning the studio. First year getting her feet wet kind of thing. Last summer worked really hard on what her mission, her visions are. We spent a lot of time, and it's like she says it now. This is the hill I'm dying on. She knows she has
Mm.
such clarity as to what she wants her business to be. And I think part of it is that some of this is old guard and they're not seeing the vision. They say they are. This is just me kind of reading between lines, is that they maybe aren't fully, I don't, they can't, in my opinion, they can't be fully bought in if there's this much resistance to everything. And I do also feel that one of the people is the former owner's sister.
Yeah.
So
There's
I think
always
there's
the like
some, yeah,
yeah, the human drama history that plays into it. But that's
I,
where I think you guys have already started the right thing. Like the
yeah,
mission, vision, core values, what it like how do we do things here? And these are non-negotiable things.
yeah,
To me,
yeah,
what's coming up in this too, and Carol, like to your point, one thing that it took me too long, like to totally get this. And now we coach to it because when you're able to personally make this transition, it will change your ability to lead. When you experience what this person's experiencing, why doesn't matter. But Carol, you asked the perfect question. How is it possible that you think it's appropriate to challenge me as your boss? It's not necessarily negative because as a boss, your ability to have thick skin, take feedback, not get flustered, and then make the appropriate choice based off the information, like that is the boss's job. The technique here, though, that I'm getting to is sometimes it's this meta conversation, and this is the one that it's not very comfortable. And this is going back to what you said, Bridget, where it's like you think you're being nice when really being kind would be stopping the entire conversation we're having about retention altogether and point blank asking this question. Not, why are you challenging me? Like, hang on, we need to pause here. My sense of the situation is that there's something here that you don't like about this. And I'm trying, but I'm not understanding where you're coming from. I don't understand what outcome you're trying to achieve right now by asking me why we would try to retain clients and saying that you don't think that that's your job. I don't understand something. Can you explain it to me? Like, just fucking flip it right back. What are we trying to do here? What's your objective? Call it out, because this is a perfect example of a case where there's no way this is a standalone. And I know who we're talking about now. I already know that this is the case where it's like, if it's happening here, it's happening in 50 other places too that you don't even know about yet. And it's going to keep coming up. So this meta conversation is the piece of the puzzle. Because as you just said, Carol, brilliantly, like, how are they even deciding to challenge this or whatever else? How did they not challenge Carol, like, beyond the building it up? Because they didn't need to. Like, something else underlying in the belief, in the understanding, in the vision, in the everyone going the same direction existed from your leadership. That doesn't exist here. It's not a fault of anything, but that has to get solved. That's the actual underlying issue in a case like this. That's tough.
It's really tough. And I think that this will be nice for many, many studio owners to hear because I don't think it's just about buying an existing business. Like
No.
all my clients pretty much have been through, and actually many of them, because a lot of them have newer businesses or are newer to coaching. Um, they all are dealing with this exact bucket of things. I can't remember if it was me or Carol who brought it up before we jumped on, but it's in the same bucket or maybe even symptomatic of the same thing of like people thinking that you're friends, like people thinking like employees thinking that that this is a democracy, that like they are, that it, like a lot of it comes from when you hire your friends, a lot of it comes from the vibe you give that you are friends, and just lack of boundaries, lack of kindness. Clarity is kindness, kind is clear. And I feel the same as Carol in that, like, that nobody would challenge me like that in my business, but I don't feel the same as Carol in the sense that they used to. So Carol, from the beginning, nobody challenged her, but everybody used to challenge me about every fucking thing in my business. Hashtag Terry's dad. I love that. Who said that? Whoever said this is a democracy? Exactly. So, yeah, I think this is just such a common thing. And yeah, I like the idea of going back to mission, vision, and values. And I also think the thing I see the most about why this comes up is because in little ways, you allow it to happen all the time. And
Yeah.
then when a big thing comes up, it becomes a big thing and you're way more stressed out about it. But it's like, how many times this was a client yesterday, how many times when one of your teachers comes to you to like gossip about another teacher, do you let that happen? How often do you let them say stuff to you like, I don't really think you should do it this way. You should do it this way and that way or whatever. And these little things give them the impression that it's a democracy, that you need their help, which is the worst thing that you can do to one of your employees, is to make them feel like you need them, otherwise the business will like whatever, and that you are like floundering and you're open to all and any ideas, et cetera, et cetera.
I think this, because we talked about this last time or whatever, maybe the time before last, about boundaries. Like, that's what ends up happening at the end of this road is you are establishing a boundary by asking this question, like, what are we trying to achieve here? And then, Bridget, you're talking about enforcement of boundaries, where it's like, you don't even have to say it, but every time that someone's like, well, I don't think you should do it like this, you should do it like this. And then it bothers you, you catch it, but then you like sacrifice your own dignity and own boundary to accept it times 10, and then something big happens and now it's really difficult and the whole thing blows up. A true boundary is, when this, I will do this. It's not the ultimatum of like, then you will have to whatever. It's not on them. Going back to the original point of these teachers being like, well, pushing back on this, blah, blah, blah. Like, you could see that that's where this will end up at. There will have to be a choice where the owner will have to basically say, This is our vision, mission, core values. This is what we're doing and why we're doing it. Here's how we're doing it. You're on board with that or not, and I hope that you are. When you're not, then you don't work here. Like it's not the fire part, like I hate you. It's like then this doesn't work, and that would really be too bad. That's it. Hmm. It's like, dang. You know, the other thing, I want to go back to the benchmarking comment for a second here. Benchmarking is interesting because sometimes, like, we really, our brains are satiated from data and benchmarking. And early on in coaching, it was more common. It still happens now, but it was much more common where people were like, well, what should my retention rate be? How many first visits should I have? Like, what's even good? What are we even looking for? And we've created benchmarks off of everyone we've worked with, like over 1,000 businesses now, and the industry data, and. But still, just blindly trusting benchmarking is nothing wrong with challenging it. It's understanding like what exactly does this mean? This benchmark comes from where, whatever. But then in a business that isn't brand new, if you've been operating, and in the example we're talking about, you've purchased a business that's got 15 years of business data, that's your benchmark. Because the thing about benchmarking that's way underutilized, because I feel like owners think that, again, it's like the nice versus kind thing. They think that this is off-putting or aggressive in some way. But like in my last yoga studio, once a quarter, we posted everyone's individual retention rates. You didn't get any reprimand or like nothing happened. It was just internal, like public team knowledge. Here's every teacher's retention rate. Mine too, everyone's. Here's the top person, here's the bottom person. Here's the exact rate. New clients, whatever. I'll tell you what, no teacher was at the bottom of that list two quarters in a row ever. Not one fucking time in 10 years. Didn't say anything, didn't do anything, nothing. No one wants to be at the bottom of that. It was just transparency. But that was benchmarking against our own team. If we had compared it with another studio and someone had a different retention rate or whatever else, like you'd have had a different result or the industry or whatever. So when in doubt, if you've been operating for a minute and you're not sure, benchmark against yourself. These teachers, I mean, how do they compare with the actual studio itself? Because it's sometimes that's good for you to know as the owner too. Sometimes the teacher, you know, in class-based businesses or whatever, but any human service business, sometimes the person you think is your top performer, if you really get deep on the data, they are not. Example, you can have a full yoga class, but if you only teach 2 days a week and your yoga class is like, let's say you cap out at 30 people, it's the same 60 people who practice twice a week that fill that class. It looks like you have the busiest class, but you just have a following. And teacher B, they're only 70% full, but they actually have serviced 1,000 students in the last year instead of 60 and retained most of them. Like they have a way higher impact on the business in a positive way. But until you start looking at it, you won't, at first glance, it doesn't look like that.
Case in point, with a client, one of their like best teachers. I love this. He's one of my best teachers. And exactly what you said, Josh, when we really looked at the data, and he's like, oh my gosh, I love taking this class. All my teachers love taking this class.
Yeah, best at what?
Best at what? So when we really drilled into the data, it's like I use the term a teacher's teacher.
Mm.
Right? I don't, I have never taken this person's class, but according to the owners, she learned so much. And I said, well, that's the problem. And if we look at the data, he had that following, but his retention of new clients in his class was like only 20%. So people took his class and didn't come back. I said, so he's teaching to the 1%. He's teaching to the 1%, and he's not good with new clients. and they had a conversation, and he wasn't, he quit, which was fine. It was like, look, we need, and he was like, nah, I don't want to do that. Okay.
You need that person on your roster too, is the thing. Like you need the depth in your team to be able to do that, but that doesn't negate the responsibility of being able to service anyone who's coming into a class.
And ignoring the new
Or
people.
yeah, or like if then because you personally like that person's class and whatever, then they teach 10 times a week and your hungry younger teacher can't get enough classes and they end up going in and getting a job somewhere else, and then you're pissed off that they went and got a job somewhere else because you're just trying to make a living, but they actually had a better retention rate. It would have made more sense to give them more classes. Like that's where the data can be powerful. It lets you look at it more objectively.
Yeah, a true
Hmm.
master teacher should absolutely be great with dealing with new students, 100%. And also it just goes back to giving them explicit, like check it off the list tools to
Yeah.
increase like their engagement. Because you don't have to do that much with a new client to make them feel special. Like say hi, say bye, maybe send them a little message, use their name once or twice in class. That goes a really long way. And it's also a great way to see if someone is an actual team player, so to speak. So,
That's a good point too. I always find this stuff funny where and it goes back to what Carol was alluding to and what we got to there with like asking this meta question. When someone's like, "Oh, I don't want to do like I don't want to have to give a tour before the class before my class because I need to talk to my incoming students by standing at the desk." Like I just the resistance to some of this stuff sometimes is fascinating too. Well, we're already doing so much and not getting paid that much. You can't ask me to do more. Like, we're not actually asking you to do anything more. Like, you're still standing here. We're just saying, say hi to that person. Like, it's really, it's fascinating. It's all the game of it. The non-attachment piece that you're mentioning from sales, like, that's the other piece that comes into this too, where at some point I think some people it takes longer than others to kind of mature into this place where as the owner you get a little bit cold in a positive way where you're like you're just so much less attached to is this person going to like this or not, or oh they quit or they went there, like you just let go of all of that shit. It just because you realize it kind of just doesn't matter enough for you to lose sleep over it, but in the beginning you really do.
did we do it? Do we solve every problem in the
Oh,
industry?
I
We
don't
every
know. I
every
don't
industry problem.
actually I did have going back to something much earlier when we were talking about free and pricing, and you said about pricing and stuff like that. And you use the example, Josh, of you got somebody at a price that hasn't gone up in 7 or 8 years, kind of thing. I made a note to myself that this is why it's a good idea to raise your prices like every year,
Yeah.
right? To have it built in. And like we have a client that actually I think it's a brilliant idea is in their agreement, their membership agreements. They have an automatic if someone stays on the membership for a full year, right? And it's after that first year, it automatically goes up a certain percent. And they basically have built like a cost of living increase into that membership price. And that means, and this is, I always think it's always kind of interesting. We always like everything in whole dollars and round like 120, 125, 130. But that means that they have clients that are paying $134.67. And they're okay with that kind of thing. So that's just an interesting thing when you have
Yeah.
annual or maybe every 18-month price increases, that it makes it a lot easier than when you haven't raised your prices in 5 years or 6 years. And now you've got to take a big jump. I know that just want to mention that.
Yeah, I think that the the whole like long-term grandfathered in thing is such an interesting conversation That again, it's like that feels really nice. That's this niceness coming out, but it's not very kind to yourself or to your team or to whatever else. Like if you're going to argue with a staff member saying, "Look, like this is happening at a studio that I'm working with where we even went there and trained their front desk team a year and a half ago, or maybe a little further, on the ground. None of the people who are on the front desk team are there anymore. They've all quit and they've turned over staff. This is like they're on their third round now. And the bottom line is they're not even paying like a low amount, but they're paying like dollars per hour. It's a living wage in the city that they're in, but they're hiring like 4 or 5 part-time people. So the person basically has to go find something else to like make their living. And so we've been talking for a while about this, the problem they're experiencing being turnover. They're like, we're not having this retention rate, we're having struggle with the team in this, but we're not paying for an A player. We don't have enough total hours available for someone to make this their primary focus. So you're having staff churn. And so that's actually the thing to solve. It's like we just need 2 people who are full time. Long-winded way of just saying as well. Then we were debating like, well, what do you pay them? We're saying it's not comfortable for you to raise the prices on your person that's paying a membership fee from 10 years ago to raise them $10 a month, but then you're going to debate with your own team about $3 an hour. That again is incongruent. Like, so nice versus kind, personal comfort versus what has to happen for the business. These are all they all impact each other in the whole thing. So simple thing, yeah, have price increases raised into your stuff because things don't cost the same as they did 10 years ago. Not even close. Like it's nowhere near it.
Hey, we're talking 10 days ago in some cases,
Totally.
right? With the volatility of pricing the things right now. But yeah.
This is a bit of a tangent, but like pricing strategy has been part of our conversation today. This is where you end up talking about like tokenization and credits and all this other stuff comes into play. The examples of this, the best example would be like a grocery store. In any fancy grocery store, they've switched away from paper labels to the little digital ones. That was a big movement a few years ago. That's because then they can change the price faster across the store through programming because the cost of purchasing the goods changes dynamically. Every time you order, you pay that spot price of the order then. And so if an apple costs you 50 cents and you would sell it for 57 cents, and then you order more and now suddenly it costs you 60 cents, you're going to lose money on the apple. You have to raise prices that fast because margins in a grocery store are very tight. And so that was just an example of dynamically pricing things out of the necessity of cost shift. But it doesn't go the other way. Like, did you ever think the price goes down? If something's in season and local, or you get a different supplier source of something, price can go down on things. Or there's a hyper abundance of supply, but that's rare. Usually it's just only going up. But the point would be we just accept that. You go into the grocery store and you either do or don't want the apple. You either can or can't afford it. You might, oh, look at pears are cheaper, like make that decision. That's true, but you're still in the grocery store buying something. And we just accept that. So we're already conditioned for this. I think that that's one of the weird things that a lot of industries are going towards is a more dynamically priced situation, and it's because of how quickly things change. And the fact that the yoga world being a good example of this, in 2004, it was $119 a month average for a monthly membership, and you had to pay like a $50 sign up fee, and you had to commit to 6 month minimum. In 2015, it was $99 a month, no conditions. It actually went down average, and then it stayed the same until COVID. Now it's bumped, and the average is probably 120, something like that. I actually haven't looked more recently. But like now it's stagnated again. Like now we're hitting the 150 130 to 150 ceiling, and it's getting stuck there again, even with other things changing. I digress. The point just being like on an industry level, the price stayed the same. It even went down over the years since forever. Interesting. That's not standard business. So,
Is it a wrap?
I guess that's it.
Okay. That's a wrap on this week's Weekly Roundup. Tune in every Friday and make sure you subscribe to the show, Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, or wherever you're listening from. We'll see you next week.